Hello, welcome again to Towards a Christian TTRPG, where I ask the tough questions, such as, in the Cinderella story, if her shoe fit her foot perfectly, then why did it actually fall off in the first place? This is the third and last video about character growth. Last video I looked at the difference between character advancement and character development and how one was more mechanics driven and the other was more narrative driven. In this one I want to look at two games that introduce a different perspective on character growth and what character growth could mean for a Christian game. So firstly, a couple of games that deal with character advancement and growth in different ways. In the Mouse Guard TTRPG, character advancement is tied to the game's philosophy of growth through challenge. Skills improve through a deliberate process of facing challenges and logging passes and fails. To advance a skill, a player needs to record a number of successes equal to the current skill rating, but also a number of failed uses equal to one less than the rating. This creates a dynamic where failure is not just tolerated, it's essential. Players are encouraged to take risks and to stretch their characters, knowing that setbacks contribute directly to development. Players may also gain currency such as fate and persona points by acting in line with their character's beliefs, instincts, and goals. This reinforces the game's emphasis on role-playing as a path to growth. So the result is a system where the character growth feels more earned and personal and is more tightly woven into the narrative. Speaking of being tightly woven into the narrative, there is another RPG called Slug Blaster, which is about riding hoverboards through different dimensions, believe it or not. Players earn boosts and cred as the sort of in-game currency. Boosts are used to upgrade gear, sort of unlock new abilities, things like that, while cred reflects the player's growing fame and reputation. The interesting thing about this game is that each character actually has a predetermined character arc, which consists of 4 different scenes, which the player can purchase using the in-game currency. As they purchase each scene in turn, they then role-play that scene with the GM in order to attain the next step of their character arc as part of the actual in-game narrative. For example, there's a character in the game called the Smarts. A character is known for their intellect, strategy, and knack for problem solving by being clever rather than through brute force. Their character arc follows the steps of inspiration, where they get a big idea, results, where the idea shows promise, unintended consequences, where the idea goes haywire, and full realization, where the idea finally gets realized and just works. So each character has their own set of scenes, different ones, that they role play with the GM in order to actually proceed with their character advancement. Now, for some people, this idea sounds really interesting. It provides a framework or a template for the player to use. The framework has enough room in it to allow for a lot of different interpretations for different characters, and it provides a specific direction for the character that everyone at the table knows about. The GM and the player themselves can then discuss their individual arc during the game, and both of them can guide the story in that direction. This gives every player a clear direction and a clear process for what leveling up looks like and how it's different for each character. Now, for other people, this is the worst idea that they have ever heard. It removes from players the very reason that they play role-playing games in the first place, which is autonomy and free will. The idea is that any kind of guided processes that the player didn't actually think of themselves is seen as railroading, especially if I'm railroading my own character. The whole appeal of role-playing games is that you can play whoever and however you want, even despite the fact that there are a lot of already determined character classes. Following a directed character growth, such as like in Slug Blaster, kind of prevents you then from making those choices. The thing is that often the most important thing that people want is lots of character build options or choices, but at the same time, they also want to know what is the best choice for the most powerful character. and which then is the best choice for each class, and which one of the classes would win in a fight, and essentially how to just be the best at everything I ever want to be. So one of the questions I do want to ask is, for a Christian RPG, what would character growth actually look like? What would it actually mean? So if we think about a story, most character growth is about someone admitting their mistakes and overcoming their flaws. And if I'm the author of the story, I can make my characters do that because that character is not me, and it's fun to watch other people struggle. However, it's very rare for me as a person in real life to actually admit my mistakes. Because if the character in a game is admitting to their mistakes, then the person playing them needs to be aware of those mistakes at the outset and not just think that they are the correct course of action. It's far easier for me to see the character flaws of others, even ones that I've made up, but also additionally in real life, rather than to see my own, because I don't see my character flaws as really flaws. They're just common sense. So one of the things that could be introduced into a Christian game is a morality system, not like an alignment system. I think the idea of having purely good or purely evil characters is a bit simplistic. Having an alignment of good or evil or even neutral kind of begs the question that if you do something that contradicts your alignment, then should you suffer some kind of consequence for it? For example, if you're a good character and you do something evil, then should you get punished? But similarly, if you're an evil character and you do something good, should you also be punished for that? Maybe. I did think at one point about introducing a sin counter, but probably not called sin necessarily, probably something more like a corruption track or something like that, where every time a character makes a morally bad decision, it influences their level of corruption, and too much might start to affect their spiritual attributes. However, I've decided not to do that, mostly because it's not theologically accurate. We are not bad because we do bad things. Rather, we do bad things because we are bad in the first place. Changing our behavior doesn't change who we are. We need something to change us internally first. Another reason I don't want to measure corruption is the fact that most people don't have sort of sin counters printed on their foreheads to let other people or themselves know how sinful they are, which is a very good thing. But the most important reason is because the choices players make shouldn't be so obviously clear-cut. If you know that a choice is evil, according to the game mechanics, then you obviously won't do it, and you can deliberately choose whichever choice will give you the best point outcome. Even if you keep the corruption level secret, then it's still up to the game master to determine which specific choice the players made was better or worse, and how many points they should get. In a lot of these situations, the benefit doesn't come from actually making the choice anyway. The benefit comes from why you made it and how you came to the conclusion to make that choice in the first place. This is accomplished through discussion between the players and taking into account their own characters and what they need to accomplish and how they're going to go about it, and even how they will resolve something that they disagree about. So the idea then is to make choices as fundamentally close to different ways as possible. As I say, wisdom doesn't come from age. Wisdom comes from taking responsibility for our actions. If I don't want to take responsibility for my actions and change my character, then as far as I'm concerned, character growth only boils down to becoming more powerful and being able to do more of the things that I was doing before. So from a Christian perspective then, unless I have a change in identity, a change internally, then I will interpret my character growth as me doing more of the same thing and becoming more self-righteous, as that works. So character growth then is as much about the player as the character. In the best stories, such as things like Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars trilogy before it became weird, they don't just give us good entertainment, but they provide us with a benchmark of behavior to aspire to. They demonstrate what a good character is, and they show how character evolves according to the decisions that are made within the story itself. So in the system I'm trying to put together, one of the aspects of of character growth and advancement is that the players get experience points when they fail a roll, so similar to Mouse Guard. These experience points can be spent later to add them to future rolls, so they can literally use their past experiences to improve their future efforts. But also, if the player saves enough experience points, then they can spend some during downtime to gain a permanent increase to a skill or a gift. Then they also must make the decision about whether they're going to use the points in the game or whether they're going to save them to give themselves a permanent boost later on. And considering they can also give those experience points to other players to help them out, they need to decide what they want to do with them. So again, an ethical or moral decision. So there's two reasons behind this mechanic. One is that we tend to learn and improve more from our failures rather than our successes. So hence you get more points from failing. And two, I want players to not fear failure, that there's a literal mechanic behind failing forward. So they're more likely to try new things and take the initiative to roll the dice even if they fail, because it provides a nice currency of experience points they can use later for a future roll or to level up. One of the issues I've discovered with playtesting and with Christians in general is that we have a tendency to be passive and are even taught to be passive because we want to know the right thing to do or the right thing to say in every situation. So for the players of a Christian game, one of the chief questions should be, what do we do in situations where things are not so clear-cut? How do we go about making good decisions? And therefore, how could I create a game where it's better to be active and make a decision rather than be passive and just let things happen around us and not sure what to do? Anyway, that's my thoughts about character growth and advancement. Let me know what you think in the comments. Even if you disagree, that's fantastic. If you're still watching this video and you're interested in following this journey, please feel free to like and subscribe or check out some of the other videos, especially if you have your own views. I'm really interested to hear your points. Otherwise, if not, thank you, as always, for listening.